Hi everyone, I'm Dr. Abbas Malik and I am your instructor for the web development course. This is the fourth part of this lecture number 10. And then if I just quickly review what we have done so far. So we have implemented a web server using the Express and the MySQL that to handle our MySQL database. So first of all, we need to install the two libraries inside the Node.js environment, and then we created using the Express, we created the web server. Then we enabled the how we can handle the data from the body of the request that is coming from the client side. Then we created the database connection. Then we check that this database connection is correctly established or not. Then we implemented some get and post requests, and then we have a get request that read all the data from the students table. Then we have implemented the post request, which add actually a new record in the student table. And that student table is actually, if I just quickly what you go through that process. So we can go to the admin panel, and that admin panel, here we have this Node.js database, and inside we have a students table on which we are reading the data and doing all those operations. Okay, so let's go back to so we have implemented this post request on that specific URL, which handle the insertion of new record. Then we implemented a get request to read only one data from the one record from the students table. And here the ID value is actually coming from the uh, as a body of that request, which is coming from the client. We implemented another get request on the same URL, but rather than sending the ID value as the part of the body of the request, we are sending it as a URL parameter, and that is what we have implemented. If you compare these two, if I just try to minimize that things, and then we can see that things. So if you look at it here, we are reading the ID value from the request body, and here we are reading it from the parent. So that is the only difference between these two implementation of the get requests. Then we have implemented a put request in which we can update the data inside a specific for a specific ID value. And then we can also implement here the ID value is also coming as as a body of the request, and then the new information which we want to update here. The same put request, the only thing difference is that rather than the ID value is coming as a body of the request, is coming as a parameter of the request or the URL parameter. And same thing we have implemented for the delete. Again, two different ways. The first way is that the ID value, which record we want to delete from the database, is coming as an ID, and the second one is the ID value is coming as a parameter. And this is the complete implementation that we have finished in the last three parts of this lecture. So let's come back to our lecture number 4. Here we will talk about how we can specify the status, request status. So HTTP response status codes indicate whether a specific HTTP request has been successfully completed, what kind of request it is. For example, if we have information responses, so informational responses mean that we are sending something back to the client as an information, but it is not success, not the thing has been done. So then we have the successful responses. Then we have the redirect messages. The one server is receiving that specific HTTP request and redirecting it to another server. So that is, in that case, we can set the request status to these numbers. And then if you click on these links, then you will see if it's a complete list is given, and that is also given in the references. So you can go and check over there. If we have something like 400 response, it means there is something, there is the request which is coming from the client, which it has been formulated in not in a correct way. So we can set that response. If there is an internal error happen inside the server, then the codes are from this to this. So these are different type of the responses that status code that we can set for the request. So here is a way. So either we can write a response dot status. So we are specifying the status of that response, which is going back to the client. We can write in one line like this: dot status 200 dot results, send results. We are sending back all the results and we have successfully read the data. Or we can write these as a two lines rather than writing in one line. So we can response dot status. We are specifying the status. We are specified the one. Once the status has been specified, then the next line we can say that send back the response to the client. So either we write it one line like the above, or you can write in two different lines. So it is up to you which specific format or which specific style you happy with. Okay. The next thing, again, we are when we are trying to get the data from the students, single record here we say status is equal to 500. It means that we could not able to run the execute what you can say that run the SQL query on our database management system. So we can say send status to 500, and in other case we are sending back the response to the client and setting the status to 200. So in this way we can set the status of that specific uh, what you can say that the client, the request which is coming, a request or response or HTTP request or response. We can specify that response. We can specify those status codes. So the next thing is that this is, I mean, so far we have implemented everything using the what you can say that students table. So this is our what you can say that this is hands-on experience for you guys. So you can use this as a course ID value string, and then we have a course master major. This is the structure of the course table, and then you need to write that SQL query to create that table, insert some record inside it, and then you can also implement get request, put request, post request, and delete request for that courses, and then you can do everything what we have. I have done in the last three parts of this lecture using the students table. So you can do the same for the course. That will give you a hands-on experience on that one. So next topic that we want to cover is the data validation. So I mean, as we know that the data is very, very important. If we uh, add the garbage data inside our database, so then it is not a good idea. So first of before we can insert the data inside our database, then we want to do some validation. So we can write some validation code, and security best practices is always validate the user data. We cannot trust the user about data. Status 400 means that the bad request, it means the request which is coming from the server is from the client is not good enough. So we, for example, if we need the name property which must be there, and then the length of that name should be greater than or equal to 3, then we can validate this data, and then we can say that return the response dot status equal to 400 dot send. We are sending that your data is not valid and the name is missing, or the not 3 or not 3 character long. So we are getting, so we apply certain validations. Okay. So we also have this, rather than we write these if conditions and then accordingly we specify these uh, error messages which are going to be sent to the client. We can use the Joy, which is a node package, and which help us to data for the easy data validation. And then if you click on that link here, then it will take you to the initial information. So how we can get started with that. And definitely, because it is an external package that we want to install, then of course we need to run the command npm joy, and then we can install that package. And then once we have installed that package, we can import that package, and then we can write the schema validation systems that will help me to validate that specific data which is coming from the client. So we say joy.object and name joy.string, minimum length is 3, and it is a required field. It must be provided by the user. If it is not given by the user, then this validation will fail, and then we will not add the data or update the data into the system. Okay. So build the validation using a joy. Validate this with joy. So how we can validate? Once we have written down this validation rule or validation schema, then we can apply that on the request.body, and then we can check if the name information has been provided inside the body or not. And if it is given, then it will apply those validation rules on it, and then it will give me back the results. If the we can log in into that one, and then if the value has been successful, then we can say that we are what you can say that the value name and given name is given, so everything is okay. But if that is not given, okay, due to, I mean, we have actually applied three different rules. Number one thing, that the value is coming in as a string. The second thing, that value that is coming in, it should have at least 3 character long. And then the third thing, that it is given, it must be there. If it is not there, then, so we apply three different rules here. So first of all, what we will say, that it is if there is an error, I mean, this on the this part here, this is the success part. Okay, I mean, in the successful, we have the value which is actually over there. And then in case of the error, so value will be an empty thing. I mean, value does not have anything. And the error will have a something inside. Error will be a something. So here say name is required. It means the name was not provided, and the original value that is in the object is this, and the name is not there. Okay, so that is also another thing, that where we can test that if the error in that result, if the error is there, then we it means there is some data validation has been failed, and then we need to identify which error it is, and then accordingly we can send back the response. So log.error, so if we are on logging only the error, so name is required, so it will give me all those information. Then we also need to find out that message. So we say result.error.details, and if you look at that, this is a details, and this is an array of objects. And then inside that array, the first element, then we are getting the message. So first element, and then we are getting that message. So actually, this details actually represent this object here. And from that object, we are getting that message, and that is going to be sent to the client, or we can log it into our system in our console. So here is an more what you can see, the student schema. Validation, for example, we say joy.object name. Name is a string. It is should have at least 3 character long, maximum 50 character long. It is a required field. Then we also have a gender. Gender is also a string, and it is also a required field. Then we have a semester. Semester is actually a number. It has a minimum value 1, maximum value 8, and this is a required field. So we can create that validation rules for the students data. Of course, we also have the uh, major, so we can also say that what is a major, what will be the values, and so on, so we can apply that. And then we can check that if there is an error that is coming after the validation, then we say if there's an error, error is something, error is not null or undefined, then in that case we say dot send result is equal to failure result. I mean, there is a failure in data validation, and then whatever that message is coming in, we are sending it back to the client. Okay, so now what you can say that for example, we are providing that this name as AB, and the student is not added, so add name length must be at least 3 character long, so we are giving them appropriate message to the client, send back, and then it can display to the user the appropriate message. Okay, so if we are providing that one, but we are making that this semester is 10, then again we say student is not added, semester must be less than or equal to 10 value, so we are getting the appropriate messages from that one. So here is a complete implementation of that. First of all, we are implemented the schema rules, and then inside the request, so we say student info is equal to request.body, and then if that there is not given, then it means that not student info, that it means that failure, body is missing, there is no body which information has been provided, and then we can apply the validation rules here. So we own that information which is coming from the client. We are applying the student rules here. And if you look at that, we are checking that if the name is given, if the gender is given, if the semester is given, then we are making clear. So in case of the joy validation, we don't need to write this particular specific code. We don't need that code. Now, why? Because everything has been implemented here. It is a required field. So all these three fields are required. So if they are required and they are missing in that student information, then it will automatically fail that validation. And if there's an error and the validation has failed, it means then it will send back that message to the client, and then accordingly we don't need to worry about it. We don't need to write that if conditions. We can simply simplify this code using the joy. And definitely, if there is no error, then of course we will go and try to insert the record inside the database. Okay. Okay, so similarly, we can also have the validation rules, and you remember that the email address and the confirm email address, they must be equal. So for that one, we can write for example, we say email, then we apply the rules for email. This is a string, at minimum 8 character long, maximum 16 character long. It is a required field, and here we say the confirm email should match to the email. Okay, so it is a joy.reference email. So it means these two fields must be equal to each other. Okay, they must match with each other. And that is the small introduction about the how we can apply the validation on the server side, how we can validate data before we can do some processing on it. So here are some tutorials links which are also given in the references as well. And that is the end of our lecture today. So I hope that you have enjoyed that lecture. And then if you have enjoyed it, please subscribe to the channel. Thank you very much.